Now, in the past hour, the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has confirmed that he ordered the shooting down of an unidentified high-altitude object which had been flying over northwestern Canada. He said US and Canadian aircraft were scrambled and that an American fighter aircraft shot down the object. Mr. Trudeau broke the news in a tweet, adding that Canadian forces will now recover and analyse the wreckage of the object. He thanked North American Aerospace Defence Command for keeping the watch over North America. All this comes a day after US military shot down an object over Alaska and a week after the shooting down of a Chinese observation balloon. Here's John Donnison.
It's almost a week since the US military shot down what it said was a Chinese spy balloon off the coast of South Carolina. Now the Pentagon says fighter jets like these have intercepted another unidentified object, this time in the skies above Alaska.
We have no further details about the object at this time, including any description of its capabilities, purpose, or origin. The object was about the size of a small car, so not similar in size or shape to the high-altitude surveillance balloon that was taken down off the coast of South Carolina on February 4.
Defence officials say this latest object had been flying at around 40,000 feet, close to an area called Prudhoe Bay, much lower than last week's balloon. A military transporter plane as well as helicopters have now been sent to try and recover the debris.
The Biden administration came under a great deal of political criticism, particularly from Republicans in Congress and elsewhere, for not dealing with that last balloon more quickly. And I think it's no surprise that when they found an opportunity to take a shot at whatever this was over Alaskan waters, they did so, presumably one consideration being that this was to avoid the potential circus of yet another foreign object transiting the continental United States for days or weeks.
Wreckage of last week's balloon has now been recovered and is being analysed by US intelligence. They want to do the same with whatever they find in Alaska. Meanwhile, Chinese officials have accused the US of political manipulation and hype. John Donnison, BBC News.
I'm joined now by Brendan Kearney, former military colonel from Santa Rosa, California. Again, I should say, Brendan, because we spoke just 24 hours ago about the shooting down of an unidentified object over North American airspace. And that was a week after the shooting down of a suspected Chinese spy balloon. Is there a pattern emerging?
Yeah, seemingly there is. And by the way, good to speak with you again. Although I'll be honest with you, taking a quick look at the places of these most recent shoot downs, I would think, and I may be wrong about this, but I would think that these balloons, the one shot down over Alaska and now the one here recently over the Yukon territories in Canada, I would think these balloons, if they're Chinese, they were launched before the shoot down off the east coast of the United States. It's just the time distance factor because, again, they are slow moving. So this may be part of a large number of them that are floating around out there.
And the reason why you're saying balloons is because we discussed this yesterday. You're suspecting that they came from kind of the Asian mainland because of the way the wind is going, and you suspect that this is to do with spying.
That's exactly right. And I do believe, and again, I may be wrong, I certainly don't have any specific knowledge, but I do believe it's going to turn out that these are Chinese manufactured, Chinese controlled balloons that are operating at the behest of the Chinese government. And
the ability to identify them is coming because of the emissions that they're emitting, if I'm not incorrect about that. And that's how some of them were missed under Donald Trump's presidency, but now we're seeing more of them identified.
Well, I think there's a number of reasons that we're identifying them now. One of those is, as you just stated, the second one would be is that the technology continues to advance. The ground intercept radars that the U.S. And our allies are now using are more sophisticated than the ones that we've used before. And then probably third and most critically is we're now looking for them. Where before, I think we were concentrating on the satellites going overhead, which are free. You don't get to shoot those down, according to international law. But we're now looking for balloons. So I can imagine that the North American Air Defense Command has refocused some of its technology for precisely that purpose, as opposed to something they may have just randomly done in the past, but they're now doing with a great deal of attention because they don't want to be embarrassed again.
We've also been looking at the politics of this and how quickly President Biden reacted to that object floating over Alaska. How closely do Justin Trudeau and President Biden work around this area, and how closely entwined are their security apparatuses to act fast?
Well, let me answer the second part of your question first. There has been for well over, it's going on 60 years, the North American Air Defense Command that incorporates both the U.S. and Canadian military in a very, very sophisticated line of radar stations that run through Alaska and through northern Canada, through the Yukon Territory and across northern Canada. Canadian military and U.S. military are very closely together, have worked very closely together, and they really get exercised almost on a regular basis because the Russians have had a long history of trying to enter American airspace through Alaska. They probe on a continuous basis. So the two militaries are very, very close. The line of communication is exercised on a regular basis. It's very sophisticated, and it works. And the two presidents, or the Prime Minister Trudeau and President Biden, I believe they like each other. I believe that they will work very, very well together on these type of questions. And of course, the President of the United States is not going to turn down a call from our northernmost neighbor when it comes to the possibility of a threat in Canada, because that threat may flow directly into the United States.
And you said that if these were foreign objects, they may have been sent before these series of shooting downs began. Do you think by making them so public, these shooting downs, that it might deter future objects entering North American airspace?
Well, I think the embarrassment level is going to reach a point where it's just the returns are just going to be outweighed by the losses here fairly soon. So I think the balloons that may already be in the stratosphere heading towards the United States and Canada, again, for the same type of entry, they're probably gone. And they're going to, we're either going to encounter them, or the Chinese may have some type of self-destructive advice to just knock them into the Bering Sea. I don't know. But I would think at some point here, fairly quickly, the Chinese are going to realize that this continuing black eye is not looking good for them. And I think they're going to have to call this off.
All right, Brendan Kearney, we don't know who is responsible for these objects, but we do know that when there's an unidentified object shot in the air, we call for you. So we may be speaking to you again soon. Thanks for joining us on BBC News.